Ria Dark, MS, LSW, substance abuse professional, mental health first aid. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us, whether it's morning, noon, or night, wherever you are, for today's program, Mental Health Resiliency After a Pandemic. So, now we are living in this new reality, and moving forward, we're all kind of going back to work and opening up stores and gyms and camps are set to open for the summer, and kids are going back to school in the fall. And so what we want to think about now is kind of a long-term resiliency in a post-pandemic environment. Even myself as a clinician, sometimes it's hard for me to continue to manage all my new responsibilities, having gotten off of an entire season of kids being at home while I'm trying to work. And so, this has been hard on all of us. It's been universal. And what we want to think about now is how we can ongoing continue to work on our resiliency because, now we even have other developments in our country and worldwide. And the only thing that's going to be constant in our lives is our ability to adapt, our ability to accept, and our ability to ace it, right? We really want to do well. And so it is something that is a long-term, ongoing effort that we are going to have to task ourselves to do if we want to be the successful professionals that we would like to be. And so let's take a look. And so that's what today's program is. Okay, so we're going to take a look at what the impact that pandemics have on mental health in the workplace, right? So now we have new policies, new procedures and protocols, and we also have a continuum of individuals all going to work together. On the one end of the continuum, we have those who are feeling, that they're not even safe enough, even with these measures in place. And we have others on the opposite end of the continuum who feel as if their freedoms are being taken away from us. But just in general, there's other impacts that they have on our mental health and how we're going to manage those. And we're also going to develop an awareness of how certain communications affect others in a work environment. We might not enjoy certain things, we might find certain things challenging, we may even resent certain things, but some of those communications we need to be held accountable for them. And so this way, not only do we increase our own resiliency, but others' resiliency as well, because it matters. If people around us are doing well, then we all get to be on virtuous cycles. And so, what I want to do today is not just talk to you about, for abstract terms like virtuous cycles and resiliency. I'm going to talk to you about really practical, concrete, and specific strategies to cope with ongoing stressors and the importance of being able to maintain your productivity and therefore boost morale. When people are doing well, when we're doing well, then we all feel good about coming to work. That's what morale is. Morale is how we feel about coming to work, but also, it helps bolster our motivation, and motivation is relentless pursuit of the goal. Okay, then we're also going to take a look at, finally, there are going to be those of us who are going to struggle, and we want to figure out how can we have helpful, productive, compassionate conversations around mental health, around resiliency in the workplace. It's absolutely important for all of us to be mental health ambassadors to each other. We can't leave all of that to our HR managers who already, even previous to this current climate, this post-pandemic world, where the school counselors, where everyone would go to them. So we can't count on our managers to be able to meet all the needs of everyone. They're dealing with a new environment as well and new policies and how to implement them. And so, we all need to be guardians of each other, mental health ambassadors, so that we can all have conversations without stigma, without any judgment, without any sense of failure around mental health, and how we can do that appropriately. Because there's ways that sometimes people do it where they don't realize that it's not really being helpful. So we want to then consider what we can do to first get us out of feeling helpless. Because when we feel as if we are afraid and there's nothing that we can do and anything that we do won't make a difference, that's helplessness. And yeah, it's easy. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. I mean, myself included, as head of household with two kids that I'm raising, and they don't have play dates, they don't have parks open, they don't have camps, they don't, I mean, even the basketball hoops at the playgrounds have been boarded up. So, then, here we are, and I'm trying to, work from home, or more to put it more accurately, I'm at home trying to work, and we're all feeling overwhelmed. There's just so much going on, and they don't know what to do. So this kind of stops us from being able to take action. So that is one of the reasons why it's important for me to help you be able to counteract this feeling of helplessness. Now, what are some indicators that we're feeling this way? Well, one of the things that we want to challenge ourselves to do is to avoid clinging to the past. Because when we do, then we're not allowing ourselves to grieve for the loss of it. It doesn't help us to fantasize about the good old days. I mean, just think about this. Before we got into this post-pandemic world, you would hear people say, "Oh, back in my day," right? And I say it like that because we usually, see this motif, being in satire, right? And so we understand that people who typically say that and feel that, right, what's going on? They're unable to let go of that time. In essence, they're still living in that time. And so in today's world, they haven't evolved into our current climate, our contemporary society. And so what happens with you if you were to say, "Oh man, I really wish the good old days when we could hug and when we could, have lunch together at the cafeteria and so on and so forth." Yes, of course, we want to, grieve the loss of our normal. Yes, we're going to miss a lot of those things, but going on and on about it at work or even in your personal life is counterproductive, not just to you and your personal growth, but it's counterproductive to the group and their ability to be able to overcome the challenges that we're all collectively facing universally in our current environments. So it is important that we do not involve others negatively and unproductively. So what we then become is we become toxic to our work environment, right? We become the actively disengaged employee. The actively engaged employee is the employee who it's like, "Come on, let's go, let's do this. Yeah, this sounds like a great idea." The disengaged employee is just kind of there, just kind of clocking in. And the actively disengaged employee is the one that goes around and complains and belittles managers and others. And, a lot of times you'll catch them kicking down and kissing up. These are people who are toxic to work environments. So if this is you, please, if you could refrain from saying anything negative, whether you like the policies and the procedures, you might be at the end of the continuum where you feel, again, that these freedoms are being taken away from you. Things are going to change. These protocols are not going to be in place forever. Some might. But what's wrong with, cleaner environments and environments that have better environmental quality? There's nothing wrong with that. So, and those of you who right now who might feel safe, know that also a lot of these things are not going to remain in place. And then maybe one day you're going to have an issue if maybe your workplace doesn't enforce masks, or, your workplace doesn't, leaves the cafeteria open. So you also, in the same vein, have to be able to understand that talking to people negatively in the workplace doesn't help anyone. It's a vicious cycle. You can't change policy that way. You're not going to change people's minds either, by the way, about any position that they may have on the subject matter. So let's all just try to think about this. The average American spends the majority of their waking life at work, And what we want to do is we want to try to create an environment where everyone feels as if they are there. We are collectively trying to get our jobs done. We are only interested in helping each other as professionals, and all the other stuff I leave outside of the workplace when I come here every day, whether you're showing up on a video chat, whether you're showing up in person. Okay, some terms you may not have heard that really can help us put this in perspective in terms of really looking at this from a pandemic perspective or perspective. So one is communal suffering. These are three terms here that are really unique to the situation. So communal suffering, we are all suffering because we are seeing our work, our healthcare, our education, and our financial systems, all of these systems that we depend on, are being destabilized. Everyone around you is experiencing this communal suffering, right? Where our work environment is completely different than what we have expected it to be all these years. Our healthcare environment, our kids' at school, our economics of the stock market, you being able to have a paycheck, some people getting furloughed, and on and on and on, and we're watching them destabilize, and we are all suffering collectively, communally, as a result. And that brings us to collective grief. So the pandemic has led to a series of losses, right? Some of us have lost a sense of safety. Some of us have lost social connections and financial security. Some people have lost loved ones. So we are all also experiencing a collective grief, okay? And that's, again, this is a very unprecedented time. And when I say that, that means that we've never experienced anything like this before. Are all of these systems around us destabilizing like that. We've never experienced where we have all collectively lost connections to others, and lost a lot of our security moving forward. And then finally, another thing, again, unique to this environment is what is called moral injury. So basically, some of us have had to make choices that were not in line with our morals and our values, okay, which may have led to guilt or to shame. Okay, maybe you were, you were around others, and you couldn't help yourself even though you weren't supposed to. Maybe you had to do certain things like wear a mask, and you felt that that was against your belief system. Maybe you had to let someone go because you had to protect the company's bottom line. There's a lot of different things that are going on here. And again, this is very, 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 very unique to what's going on right now. And I just want us to understand that everyone around you is experiencing this, not to lessen your experience, but to help you understand that, you're not alone, and that, what you're experiencing is real, right? And that to know that, everyone around you is here to support you. Everyone around you understands. It's like we're in one big old support group. So this is what's going on here. So hopefully this helps you understand a little bit more exactly, kind of like nailing it down a little bit as to what we're looking at here today. So what about you personally, right? So question, right? So I want you, obviously this is not a live situation, so you can't tell me what you're experiencing, but I would like you to tell yourself, right? This is important for you to have an awareness around what it is that you're being challenged with, because when we have an awareness around what it is that we're experiencing, only then are we empowered to make new choices, to seek help, to get the support that we need to get us through those things. So one of the things that you can do is to develop a social vocabulary. Excuse me, an emotional vocabulary. I saw the word social there. An emotional vocabulary. So, emotional vocabulary is being able to really drill down on what is the nuance of your experience. So rather than saying, "Oh, I'm stressed out," okay, that doesn't let me be able to determine what it is that I'm stressed out about. So I might say, I feel the pressure to produce, even though I just can't seem to find the time. I feel, I feel the pressure to be a perfectionist. Maybe you feel overwhelmed, right? There's just too many things going on in your life right now. And so if we know that we're overwhelmed, then we know that we need to not do something. Maybe you might say you feel disappointed. You're disappointed that you weren't given an opportunity to weigh in on some of the policies, and then maybe that allows you to say to whoever it is that you want to include you, to say, I really would like to be a part of the discussion around protocols that we're developing, since I'm going to be the one who's implementing them. So again, being able to identify that helps us meet those challenges. So it's important for us to be able to do that. But in general, we are social beings. Man is designed to do two things primarily: interact with people face to face, and also movement. Two of the things that have been heavily restricted by the environment that we've all just come out of. So know that, these circumstances, this post pandemic world, is certainly one where we are being very challenged to maintain our resiliency. So, some things that we can do: tend to ourselves, as I mentioned, by developing that emotional vocabulary, and befriend others. So, there's two ways we can do that. When we show vulnerability and we ask people for help, right? Sometimes we think, oh, people are going to think I'm too weak. People are going to think I gave up. People will think I'm not trying hard enough. That's wrong. I know that anytime someone has come to me with a need, and if they wanted help, I feel good being able to help them. I'm happy that they came to me. But moreover, when someone comes to us for help, then when it's our turn, because inevitably, we're all going to be in positions where we're going to be doing well, and positions where we're going to need help. So when you need help, when you ask someone for help, then when it's their turn, because it will be, they feel comfortable asking you for help in return, right? It's not necessarily a tit for tat. What it really is opening up like a highway of you guys being a resource for each other, a two-way street. Okay? But sometimes people still, even then, even though they might realize that, or maybe they don't feel like they want to ask for help for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. So therefore, maybe if you're doing well, okay, if you're one of the people who are doing well right now, then you can be that resource for them and say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? But even better than saying anything I can help you with, because, you hear that a lot. If you need anything, let me know, right? That's very vague, right? We don't really know what that means. And so how can we offer help in a way that it's more likely to be taken, our offer, okay? So you might want to say, hey, do you want me to cover your desk for 5 minutes so you can go take a walk outside? You seem like you might, you look like you could use a break, or I have extra time. Why don't you go ahead and take a break if you like? Would you like me to handle this client for you that's being really challenging? Hey, do you need any help with these audit reports? These are things that are concrete and specific, and those are really great because we are able to offer something that is within our realm of possibilities, and things that we want to offer others, and then the other person knows that they can accept that because they know what that is. When we say, let me know if you need anything, if someone were to tell me that, I'm like, what? Because what do they want to watch my kids for a while? Would they like to do grocery shopping? So it's helpful to kind of break it down, to offer the help in that way, so people are much more likely to accept it. Okay, so let's take a look at adaptations. One of the hallmarks of resiliency is being able to adapt, right? So, if you can, think about resiliency is about being able to snap back, it's about being able to recover, it's about being able to adapt, right? Think of sponges, think of rubber bands, think of trees and skyscrapers and bridges that when it's windy, they will sway. Because if they don't adapt and if they don't kind of lean and sway, they're going to break. So we also need to understand that one of the things that made man so successful was being able to adapt. And so we need to learn to adapt in response to the outbreak in this post-pandemic world. So here are some things that you can look at. Rather than looking at these new work environmental health management requirements as something that, it's an annoyance. I don't know if I can do it correctly. Is it enough? What we want to focus on instead is, look, higher work hygiene and environmental quality. I know that, I've been traveling, in my car, and I've gone to rest areas, and I have never seen a rest area this clean. And I'm sure you're going to experience that in a lot of different places that you go. So hey, there's something we can focus on. Looking at the silver lining, adapting to the things that are good about our current post-pandemic society is what is going to help you in your resiliency, and moving forward as things continue to evolve, that you will continue to adapt to them. We're also going to have to learn to adapt to working together, but from a distance. But this can give you a sense of safety, okay? We can adapt, we need to adapt to being alone. Sometimes, we'll be dining alone, but this helps you master mindfulness. Maybe this is a good time for you to really become mindful of what you're eating, even allow yourself the opportunity to maybe even meditate, and doing things that, using that space, that personal space, using that time in a way where we can master and develop and evolve new ways of thinking, new ways of being, okay? And also, there's going to be new ways of interpersonal communication. I know that people have been really struggling with, understanding each other over the mask. I know that a friend of mine was trying to voice text me, and of course, it was all garbled. We'll get used to it. And again, this is not permanent, by the way. So we need to kind of, grasp the fact that things are going to be different. But maybe this is a great opportunity for us to like really, start to pay attention to eye contact. Maybe we didn't really, give people eye contact, and now we kind of have to. You know, Maybe now we get better at using gestures, or, really listening when people speak, because we have to. So maybe for those of us who weren't really good at doing that, this is a great opportunity for us to grow and to evolve these parts of ourselves. And, another thing we can do is adapt to the virtual office and the virtual meetings. This is something that people do all day long. Some of us are going back into the office. I personally don't see myself going back anytime soon, but I'm okay with that. I'm kind of okay. I'm kind of getting used to, being at home, and this is where I do my work. It's hard for me to imagine right now, getting up and like doing a presentation in front of people, although I love doing it. But, I've grown to understand that this is a medium that can work, when conducting meetings, trying to put like a social component to it. You can not just adapt to this virtual office and meeting, but perhaps maybe even thrive in it, maybe even become innovative in it. We'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. But I know I certainly have taken advantage of, this current environment and really tried to grow into it. And it's been really good for my career and myself as a provider. So, this is, again, opportunity is here, not just to adapt, but maybe, get really good at this. Also, there's so many gaps out there, and that we can also, if we allow ourselves to adapt to these new environments, then we free up a mental load to be able to do something even more, even greater. So let's talk a little bit more about how you can develop your resiliency by learning from past experiences. Almost a year ago now, actually, I had lost my partner, and I was wondering how I was going to manage without having a husband, and how am I going to keep the house, and how am I going to raise these kids. I have a son who's almost 13 and a daughter who's 8, and how am I going to manage all of these things. And it was very traumatic. My whole future before me just kind of disappeared. I had to grieve the loss of all of that, of a loved one. And it wasn't something that I had anticipated at all. It was very dramatic, very drastic. And then less than a year later, after I got through that, less than a year later, then we had the experience that we're all having right now. And, that experience that I had less than a year ago helped me get through this. And I think that was one of the reasons why I was able to adapt quicker than most people. I was able to grow and innovate into, expanding my ability to provide services was because I had just gone through that. So those lessons that I learned from that past experience were still very fresh for me. And I just got in this sense of like normalcy. So it was all very, very ready. I was very ready. I had those tools, very handy. So I would like for you to do the same for yourself right now. What changes have you been through before? Okay. Could be puberty, right? It could be that, you had a baby, you became a parent. It could be that you graduated college. We've all been through some changes, right? And, they changes when they happen, they're typically unexpected, dramatic. Sometimes they're traumatic, but you've been through them. So I want you to think about how at the time when you were going through those changes, you thought that that was it. I don't know how I'm going to recover. Maybe you lost a loved one. Maybe you lost a fur baby. I know I have 5 cats. I remember when I had lost my last fur baby. I thought I had to be sedated. So you in that moment you think that your life is over. You're never going to find joy. You're never going to be happy again. But of course, we know that we do. And so, what I want you to think about now, number one, is think about how you've been through something like this already and that you've overcome it. And now I want you to think about what worked for you during that time. What worked well for you to get through that? Okay. So, for me, it was, really, for me, it was different than what most people do. Like a lot of people will reach out for help. For me, I had to go in and I had to get stronger. I had to go through, I felt that I needed to go through this, and I just kind of dug really deep. I challenged myself to, really rise to the occasion, and it was incredible to see the growth that I went through. So, maybe you called friends, maybe you saw a therapist, maybe you got a new hobby, maybe you cultivated gratitude. And this round of traumatic experiences, as I started to laugh, I developed humor. Gallows humor has been around, since the gallows. But for me this time around, I realized that I needed a little bit more sense of humor. I think I had put on the war paint on my last trip around trauma, and I was kind of stuck in that. And there was really no need for me to continue doing that. So I learned to lighten up. I learned to laugh. I learned to, really use a sense of humor in moments that are tense. So what worked for you in the past? What was that thing that worked for you? And that's your strength. That is the thing, that is your kind of your center of your resiliency. The things that worked for you in the past are the centers of your resiliency that you can continue to use. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't take a look at, what were your areas of improvement. I don't like to say weaknesses, it's areas for improvement. What backfired? What didn't work for you? Maybe we were using negative coping mechanisms. Maybe we played video games too much. Maybe we shopped too much. Maybe we gambled too much. Maybe we drank too much. Maybe we ate too much. All of these things. What are things that backfired? Maybe we held on to anger. Maybe there's so many different things that we could have done wrong. And, we've all done them to a certain degree in the past at some point in time. And when we realize that those things didn't get us anywhere, if bitterness, anger, resentment, argumentative, if those things didn't get you through the last time, which I'm pretty sure that they didn't, it's not going to help you get through this time. So I want you to remember that. Those things that you may be experiencing right now that have held you back, they may be holding you back right now. And I want you to challenge yourself and ask yourself to let go of those things that just don't work. Now, role models. That's interesting. One of the other things that worked for me and the things I was mentioning earlier is kind of tied into role models. I started reading two books, when Women Ruled the World, which was a book about the women pharaohs like Hatshepsut and others. And then Taroset was another one, and then there's more than that. Of course, it was a great book about the women pharaohs across the years. And then the other one was City of Dreams, which is the 400-year history of, or maybe it's longer, but 400 years of immigrants in the United States. And it kind of starts from, when the first Dutch settlers were here, and then, then the British, and then how that all developed. And then, after that, became United States, and then like the massive waves of immigration, the things that the people in these books went through, whether they were pharaohs or whether they were just poor Irish people coming and immigrants and just kind of landing here. This, back when the immigration first started, people would just land here in a boat and just kind of walk off. These were real people who went through incredibly challenging times, and they persevered. And for me, it was an escape too, right? Because I'm escaping to a different part of our history, but they're still humans. So this was something that worked for me in the past. And there were also role models. Role models are so important. Who do you look up to? Who can you go to as a source of inspiration? And it doesn't even have to be someone in your real life. As I mentioned, mine were, even though they're real people, I didn't know who they are. I mean, this could be someone, this could be a parent, grandparent, even. Okay, think about those role models and use them as a source of inspiration. And what motivates you to survive and thrive? What is your why, right? So ask yourself, why do I want to become resilient or further my resiliency in this post-pandemic world? Why? Why do I want to do that? Because there's people that are counting on you. And that's the thing that should motivate you. Maybe you have a gift, and the world can use that right now. Maybe you have two kids and five fur babies like I do, and you want to survive and thrive and be able to provide for them, to help them get through these times of change. What's your motivation? What is your why? Okay, why do you want to do well? And your motivation could just be, I want everyone to look up to me as someone with integrity and character. And that is enough. So we have to be able to identify these things. So if you can, think about what changes have you been through before. Okay, think about those and how you got through that. What worked for you in the past, use that as your strength and build on that. What backfired, okay, the things that didn't serve us before are not going to serve us again. So we need to let those go. Who are your role models? Who can you look up to, or even ask for inspiration? Not just use them as inspiration, but even ask them. And then what is your why? Okay, those things are important for us to begin to orient ourselves towards resiliency. Okay. Now, before we can begin building resiliency, I want us to take a look at some of the pandemic roadblocks, excuse me. So remember, this is an ongoing situation. Things develop, and thankfully it feels that things have kind of calmed down a little bit. But even if they have, in your work environment in particular, your circumstances are going to vary from day to day. One day they're going to do things this way. Another day they're going to change it. Why? Not because they're trying to make your life miserable, although it might feel that way, but it's because this is uncharted territory. There's no playbook for managers and supervisors and the powers that be, for what we're experiencing right now. Everyone's just trying to do their best. And along the way, they might find out that this wasn't working really well, or they might find out that, this was a, straight up mistake. But more than likely, it's just because the circumstances of our environment is changing every day, and dramatically so currently. We've all gone through this pandemic. We're in a post-pandemic world for the most part, and we currently have another situation going on right now which might cause more things to vary day by day. So these are challenging times, to put it mildly. But what we need to do is we need to be able to continue to perform despite external events. Those are not reasons for us to not perform. Okay, now that doesn't also mean that it's expected of you to be able to perform 100%, or even 80%, which is actually the ideal range. If you are struggling, it is absolutely okay to ask for help. That's why those services are available to you. EAP being your number one thing I can think of. And so another thing that you can do to really help you through this resiliency is to figure out, you know, what are things that I can anticipate is going to be a need or is going to be a challenge in this new way of doing business? Like maybe now you can't see your client, but you really rely on being able to see them and, have informal conversation with them and, take them out to lunch. Okay, so now you can say, I see a problem of being able to bond. What can I do? Maybe I can send them little gifts in the mail. Maybe I can set up a social hour on the do a social hour with them, even video conferencing. Maybe I can, we can read the same book and keep in contact. There's a lot of different things that we are going to be doing differently. And so if you are prepared, right, then you can handle when things require a pivot, right? So, if you have gas in your car, a spare tire, and 30 minutes to get someplace, right? And 30 minutes cushion, to get someplace. In other words, I have to be somewhere at 3 o'clock. It takes me 30 minutes to get there. I leave at 2 o'clock to arrive at 2:30. And if something along the way happens, I'm prepared. So, these are the things that we have to keep in mind, from day to day. We have to be strategic. We have to be proactive in anticipating what could go wrong here and what might be a gap, what might be a need, what could be something that is going to create a situation. I need to be ready. I need to know what resources are available to me. I know who is available to me. I need to maybe brush up on my education on something. Maybe I need to get a certification. We need to be strategic. We need to be prepared because excuse me, because we need to know, and anticipate, what might happen. You have to run these scenarios, run these possibilities, and then come up with various solutions. Now, after you've done all that, we can now talk about building resiliency. Okay, my number one tip for building resiliency is to master the art of yet. Now, you might wonder what that might be. So basically, it's like this. Instead of saying, I'm not really sure how I'm going to continue building rapport with my clients yet. I am uncomfortable with these new procedures and I just don't know how I'm going to be able to handle them yet. I'm concerned that I'm not going to be able to provide my employees with all the information that they need about this new way of doing things yet. So yet, there's two things that's happening here. When we say it yet, we know that it's a behavior that we have to keep working on. So basically, this separates this from us. We're not making this a part of who we are. Okay, so for example, I am not really good at math. You'll hear kids say that, and you want to say yet, right? Because when they say I'm not really good at math, it stops there. And not only do they label themselves that way, but also they stop growing because that's it. That's who they are. They're not good at it. It's been personalized. But if they say, I'm not good at math yet, the focus then moves on getting good at math, right? And so it moves away from being personal and it moves into being a behavior, which is the definition. When it's personal, it's a fixed mindset. And when it's a behavior, it's a growth mindset. So this is the easiest way to really change the way you think. And there is a lot to be said about linguistics in terms of linguistics do make an impact on your neural pathways. So if we say, oh, I'm going to try to do something, right? That's just trying, right? I'm going to do that. We even tell people to say, instead of saying, don't forget to say, please remember. So linguistics is important. And this one little word This one little three little word can really change the way you think and really move you from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset. Okay, so search for the positive. What is your silver lining, right? My silver lining has been, when I was going through my trauma last year, I decided to do something that would take up my time and like take up my headspace because I didn't want to keep thinking about that. And so I started raising monarch butterfly caterpillars and eastern black swallowtail caterpillars, and it was amazing. I mean, it was such a great relief to be able to be distracted by these little insect larvae and to just watch these butterflies come out and to raise them, have a sanctuary. This year I have an even bigger sanctuary, just to be able to do that. That was something that, because I had all that extra time and because I had all that pain to sit with me during that extra time, not cultivating a relationship anymore, um, having a partner anymore, that was the thing that came out from that, and that even became an Airbnb experience I was doing. So, it's just we need to find the silver lining. There's always a silver lining in everything, people. I know it's hard for us to see that, especially, those of us who have had tremendous amounts of losses. There has to be something in there. Okay, even with me, with having the kids around and being a working mom and head of household, and this afternoon I was walking my daughter, thinking to myself all the things that I had to do, but I was like, come on, let's go, and just she was skipping ahead of me. And so it was like, these times that I have with my kids right now, even though sometimes, it drives me a little batty, these are moments that I may not have ever had if it weren't for these situations. So please find your silver linings. Embrace vulnerability. Be willing to take risks. Okay. You may fail, and no one's really gonna blame you because we're all just trying to figure it out right now. Seize opportunities. Remember, we're all striving for common goals. So let's eliminate any of that fear that's holding us back. Okay. And also, your inner world is a construction zone. So when you're going to work on your inner worlds, slow down, take it easy, be attentive, really pay attention to what's going on. Remember, we talked about that emotional vocabulary. It's important for us to really take our time to continue to build that. And then, this is the reality of the pandemic. It doesn't matter what point of view you see it from, however you think it's been caused or not caused, or what is irrelevant, and certainly not something that we should be discussing at work, because it takes away from our ability to connect with our coworkers, to get on virtuous cycles, and to really focus on, let's help each other get the job done. It's happening, it's here, we're in a post-pandemic situation. This is not something that we can continue to ignore. It just is. Again, it doesn't matter what you think caused it, what didn't cause it, what all that is stuff. The situation is that this is how we're living right now. And please, 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 especially social media, where social media has turned into, Twitter is just snarky, 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 snarky. Facebook is hater, 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 hater. There's no value in there right now. So we have so much to contend with. I know personally, I don't have time to be sitting around, not only to be looking at the feed and getting angry, and then, so on and so forth, let alone begin to argue with people about anything, because it's never happened where someone says, you know what, thank you for sharing your point of view. You've changed my mind. It's not going to do anything, folks. The only thing you're going to do is get angry, upset, and you're going to waste time. Instead, your brain's going to be dealing with small things. I believe it was a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that said, large minds think about ideas, medium minds talk about events, and little minds talk about people. And that's basically what social media is. So, also news cycles, in terms of the pandemic, when at the very beginning, when I was creating content for helping people try to get through the situation, I did used to say, get to know what's going on, keep abreast, find out, what, how to keep yourself safe. Now we know that it's not what we thought it was going to be, and we are aware of what needs to be done. Things aren't developing as rapidly as they used to. You don't have to read the news cycle every day. And if you can spend a day not listening to the news and not doing social media, you will find your brain kind of expand because it gets overstimulated from all of these things. And it actually does not make us happier. We get agitated and aggravated when we look at these things. I've never like opened up the news cycle and closed it and said, "Whoa, that was amazing." That never happens. So allow yourself the ability to walk away from that, at least 24 hours for news. And if you can do 2 or 3 days at a time of social media, you will feel dramatically better. Believe me, I know people feel like they're social justice warriors there, but it's really a false sense of you actually having any impact, really. If you want to make an impact, go out into your communities and do something that's real. Other things to consider. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the program, and it's one of my favorite things to think about is become an innovator. I did a teleconference the other day, and the speakers, the panel that I interviewed, were talking about how there's so many things right now that there's gaps, right? There's so many careers that are starting to be developed. Even within our current careers, there's so many ways that we can make this pivot happen, and to innovate and to come up with new ways of doing business. That is optimal resiliency. Why is that? Because when we feel as if not only are we just not the victims of what's going on around us, not only do we take it to the level where we're the designers of what's going on around us, but now we are creating something to where it's making an impact on others. That is real confidence. That is real sense of satisfaction. And those things help us be resilient. It allows us the opportunity to feel as if we're useful, that we matter. So innovating, coming up with new ways of doing things, whether it's a new way to fill out a form, or whether it's a new way to have accountability since we're not doing face-to-face, since we're not doing new ways for the office people to bond. There's so many different things that we could, new ways for video chat, and again, it's endless. So think about what is it that you can come up with to help create a situation that's better for everyone around you, whether it's in your personal life or your professional life or both. But also, for optimal resiliency, we also need to hold ourselves accountable for our behaviors. Remember, we talked about, not dwelling in the past. We need to hold ourselves accountable towards, not, talking about things at work that we should not be talking about, like politics and what your beliefs are about this pandemic and post-pandemic society and this new reality that we're in. Hold yourself accountable to, be able to lift those up around you, and to offer help if they seem to need it, and to ask for help when you need it. Okay, develop that confidence that you can do it. Because remember, we talked about earlier in the program, you've been through tough situations before. You know that you have the capacity to be able to get through them. So that's what I'm asking of you to do again, okay? Is to reach into that confidence that you had when you got through the last event that you got through, and utilize that to get you through the next one. Stay motivated. That's the why, right? Stay motivated. Think about, why do I want to do well? Do I want to leave a legacy for my children that this is how people get through challenging times, right? When we talk about people who went through war, we look at them, we admire them, that they got through this, that they kept their family together, and so on. You want to be this person as well. Stimulate your creativity. I've been writing fiction. I don't know what I'm doing, but I just do it for fun because my mind escapes. And I mentioned about the butterflies, woodwork. Oh, my daughter and I, we built a model car today. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot about that. That was something that took forever, but there's not a lot you can do. So it was really fun for us to put that together, and it was like actual pieces of a car. Now she knows what a car looks and how it operates, and me for that matter. So you can color, you can paint, you can play music. Fender is doing free guitar lessons. The Modern Museum of Art is doing free photography classes and some other classes. I mean, it's really endless. And when you do things that are creative, you know, it not only kind of not only feels good to create something, you don't have to judge yourself on it, but it actually kind of wakes up parts of your mind, which allows you to come up with creative solutions to the current problems that you have in your life. Okay, so what drives you? Do you want to be known as being, having integrity, as being the one who's reliable, as being the one who has calmly led his team through this? What drives you? And also, what are things that you even need? So remember, you want to be able to access those things, and especially if you're HR or if you're a manager, it's very important for you to lead the way, and to set the example and to say, you know what, here, this I call DAP before. They're great. This is what it's like, and this is what the process looks like. You give your name, you give your employee ID number, and then you tell them what you need, and they immediately connect you, and you let them know that there's you know all these other services involved there, legal and financial. You just let people know about what is available to that, and the best way that we can tell people to access services if we access them ourselves. Because remember, you can tell people to eat their vegetables, but if they ask you what vegetables do you eat, and you say you don't eat vegetables, they're not going to eat vegetables, right? So success is not final. Failure is not final. Excuse me. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And right, so we know that this guy knows what he's talking about. We know Winston Churchill does. You must make a decision, and I really like this. Joel Osteen is an evangelist. Not something that not someone that I follow, but I do like this quote. You must make a decision that you are going to move on. It won't happen automatically. You will have to rise up and say, I don't care how hard it is. I don't care how disappointed I am. I'm not going to let this get the best of me. And that, I think, is something that, I know that I had kind of in mind when I was going through my trauma last year. It's like, but I got to get through this. And it kind of went through from, I'm going to get through this, and then I started saying I'm going through this. I'm getting through this, and then I was like, I got this, and it's a really great feeling. So I don't know where you are with that, but I know you got this, and you've done this before, and I know that you will again. Failure is the condiment that gives success its flavor. So know that we've all done you know we've all done certain things and we failed at during this time. Maybe we didn't give our kids as much attention as we wanted to. Maybe we didn't work as hard as we should have. Maybe we we let our friends down who reached out to us when they needed help. That's okay. Every single one of us has done things that we just couldn't because it was just only as much as we could handle, for whatever reason, whatever your background is. But just know that we all want to just keep continuing to try and do our very best. And then, when you get through this, if you do well and you get through this well, you're going to be ready for the next one, because that's what resilience is all about. It's not a one-time thing. It's not just being resilient for this post-pandemic world. It's something that you take with you on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and you just kind of, just develop this ability to look at the world differently, to experience the world in a way where you're not afraid, and just to have this confidence and this knowledge. Really, it's just knowledge, it's deep-seated knowledge that you can do this. So that just, some thoughts to think about. Hopefully it gives you some inspiration. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Thank you, everyone, for your service, as I like to say at the end of every single program. You know, universal, remember those terms, communal suffering, collective grief. Those are two big ones when we start to think about, the experience. Remember, everyone has a different perspective. So one person, if I'm holding a stick in my hand and I'm a dog, I see a toy. If I'm holding a stick in my hand and I'm an angry person, I see a weapon. If I'm holding a stick in my hand and I'm a musician, I see an instrument. If I see a stick in my hand and I'm cold, I see firewood. Every single one of us is right, but depending on my point of view, I'm looking at the stick. I see a toy, I see a weapon, I see an instrument, I see fire, and we are all correct. And that's how people can see their world and see something totally different than you do and I do. The idea is not to bring that at work. And at work, we are all beholden by the same policies and procedures. We're going to do them. We're not going, if you have concerns about something, please go speak privately to your manager. Don't become that actively disengaged employee. Do your very best to help everyone else get on that virtuous path next to you. Okay, just a little bit about myself and my bio. Those are my two little guys. That's circa, not was it this past winter? Yes, it was, because I was not blonde the year before that. So this is a little bit about me, but just in general, thank you everyone so much. I know you've got this. Thank you everyone. This is Ria Dark.